Good evening, everyone. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Don't know if I'm live yet. If you can't see me, hello, everybody. Good evening. Good evening, good evening. If there was music in the background now, just say, okay, I'm waiting for people to join. But good evening, everybody. I'll just kind of wait for for more people to join us before I start, before I introduce myself, and just say a little bit about the topic we're going to be discussing today. Okay. Are we all online? If you are, just shout and say hello. Write something to let me know that you are online. Um, just a word confirming that you're watching. Okay, I think I'm just going to make a start for it. My name is Lade Olugbemi. Um, I am the convener of the news organization. I don't know if you can hear me. If you can, just wave, say something, let me know that you can see me. Let me know, write a comment down because it's a little bit difficult for me to see. I'm not seeing the comment yet, just to know that you're watching. My name is Lade Olugbemi. Like I said earlier, I'm the convener of the news organization, and it's also called the News Foundation in Nigeria. So it's an organization that is very transcontinental, if I can use that word. And the reason why we started the organization is to raise awareness about mental health issues in the Black, Asian, and minority ethnic community, in actual fact, in our community. So today we're going to be talking about a topic that is very, very topical. If I can use that word. Hey, Yemisi, thanks for joining. Thank you. That's the first comment I'm seeing. Thank you. Hello, Chineye. That's more like it. I'm seeing people online, so I know at least I'm not speaking to myself. Thank you so much. And thumbs up to you too, Chineye. Thank you for joining. So back to what I was saying. The topic we're going to be discussing today is something that is very topical. Yes, Tony, sister for life. Thumbs up to you. I can see you. I can see you, sister. So I would first of all like to say thank you very much to the administrators of this platform, which is Concerned Parent and Education Educators Network. It's a platform that I have followed for a long time now. And the reason why I follow them is because I am passionate about the next generation. And when I say the next generation, of course, we all know that at the end of the day, it is teachers that birth the next generation. It's teachers that impute in them the knowledge, they help to widen their horizon, they help to inspire them, they help them to be able to decide what profession are they going to be doing, what skills are they good at, and so many other things. So I have had to follow concerned parents and network, concerned parents and educators network, because there are quite some topics that have been discussed on the platform that I know that is very, very topical. I felt, you know what, I'm going to, like those silent disciples or silent listeners. I've been following the trend a lot. And there is a topic, or the topic we're going to be discussing today is actually a topic that is very, very close to my heart. We know what is going on the world over at the moment, whether in Nigeria, America, United Kingdom, South Africa, South Asia, everywhere in the world, we know what's going on. It's a pandemic. It's about COVID-19 and coronavirus, about coronavirus and the COVID-19 strain of the coronavirus. This has been on now for a while. It's been on since January. And whilst I know that a lot of nations, a lot of organizations are out there looking and trying to treat the disease, trying to find out what the cause of the disease is, how the disease is mutating day by day. I, as a professional, I am a mental health first aid instructor. I'm going to sound some bit of caveat before I start that I am not a psychiatrist, I'm not a psychologist. But however, I'm someone who delivers training on mental health first aid. And what is mental health first aid? Just like we train people in the physical realm to become physical first aiders, and what physical first aiders do is actually to act as a first responder, if you get what I mean. So, if an accident happens on the road, for example, and there's a need to, make a person safe, make a person okay before the ambulance comes. So, what the first aider, the physical first aider will be to put the person in his recovery position, make sure that they're okay, help them to bind a broken bone, put it in a split and all of that. That is exactly what mental health first aid is about. I'm going to tell you a bit about where that comes to play later. But what is important today are the two topics that I'll be talking about, which is on one, mental health awareness. I know that last week you had a fantastic contributor who spoke about mental health. What do you do? How do you cope in the current season? I am slightly kind of pushing the boundary a little bit, and I'd like to talk about what do we see. I mean, these are things that are foreseeable. And when I say foreseeable, at the moment, because of the pandemic, we know that a lot of people have lost their jobs. Some people have lost their homes. And the worst case scenario is that a lot of people have lost loved ones. People have died. When you look at the figures around those who have died, it would cut your heart. In fact, personally, for me, one of the things that I have done is actually to reduce the information that I am hearing about the number of deaths for me to be able to maintain my mental well-being. That is really, really important. So I am looking at how would people be able to cope when the schools come back in September for you teachers, for us who teach in various platforms, as a community leader, as a mother, a father, an aunt, a sister, as whatever role you consider yourself to play, as an adult. Let's just capitalize it. You're over 18. What do we think would happen post COVID? Because this is not going to last forever. We don't know how long this is going to last for. So I know that previously the lockdown in Nigeria was initially for 2 weeks. Now it's been extended for a further 3 weeks, I suppose. It's been extended for another 3 weeks. What happens? There are a lot of attendant issues with the lockdown that we're all experiencing at the moment. At least almost all the countries in the world are on lockdown at the moment. There are a lot of attendant issues. Is a fact that the world is never ever going to be the same again. Never ever going to be the same again. The way we teach will have to change. I'm very much aware that a lot of schools have devised other ways in which they're reaching out to their students at the moment. A lot of us have moved to the platform of e-learning. The way we communicate will definitely change. So before, you would very easily hug someone, you easily hold somebody's hand. And us Africans, we're an expressive lot. We love to express. It's either you're gesticulating, you know how you say, oh boy, how are you? Oh girl, how are you? And all of that. And now you touch. All of that is going to change. So it would take a while for us to get back to where we were before. And the alarm that I'm sounding today, if I can use that word, is that there's a need for us mentally to prepare for what's going to happen post COVID. How are the children taking it at the moment? Are we as parents being conscious? Are we being conscious of our children's mental health at the moment? Are we looking out for them? Are we making sure that our anxiety levels, we're not passing them on to our children, which is something that is so easy? Is the fact that, oftentimes when parents are anxious, we actually it's like a spirit. We actually pass those things on. When we are worried, we pass it on. Are we shielding our children enough mentally at the moment? Are we protecting them? All of the information we're reading on the news, do we expose them to it? Because you know what? A lot of people are actually going through trauma at the moment. And I'll just explain to you how a neuroscientist explained to me what and how the brain functions. The brain is actually like a plastic. When we go through a life event, a job loss, a bereavement, relationship breakdown, there is a sudden change. The brain takes a dent. So the brain experiences some bit of, the brain bleeds. Our brains actually bleed. The brain bleeds. And oftentimes the bleeding is not something that we'll see physically, but there are things and traumas that actually stay under. There are things that stay under. And there's a trauma that a lot of people are going through at the moment that are unspoken. One of the key factors that I'd like you to understand is that a lot of mental health issues that come up later in adult life, 50% of them are developed before a child is 14. Teachers, I will say this again. 50% of mental health issues are developed or show signs already before a person is 14. 65% actually do manifest before that person becomes 24. That is an information that I believe is very, very key for teachers, for us as teachers to take note of, especially primary school teachers and secondary school teachers. We need to understand that we play a key role in understanding what are mental health signs. What are the signs of depression? What are the signs of anxiety? I'm not going to go as far as talking about bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, and all of that because you don't really need to bother yourself about that. It's about the most common forms of illnesses that we have out there. We as teachers, we're not saying you should be out there diagnosing. No, that's not our role. We do not diagnose, but we're there to be able to observe signs and signposts. So what I'm here today to tell us about is that there is a big need for us to understand our roles in the lives of our children, to understand our roles as caregivers. We give care, we give pastoral care, we give educational care, and some of us actually do give physical care, especially when you have disabled children. And I'm going to talk a little bit about disabled children because usually when we talk about education, when we talk about children, oftentimes when we talk about the mental health issues in children, we sometimes neglect the mental health of children that are disabled. So because a child is mute, because a child cannot see, or because they cannot hear, we sometimes feel, oh, they don't understand. Oh, what do they know? They don't understand. Believe you me, I'm here to say to you today that children understand. Children do understand, especially your nonverbal. Children not only listen to what you say, they listen to how you behave. They listen to how you jump. Like I said earlier, they pick up very easily on anxiety. So we as adults, we need to learn how to manage our anxiety now. Of course, a lot of people are anxious. I experience anxiety, and to be honest with you, anxiety is natural. Anxiety is nature's way of teaching us how to fly, that is how to run, or how to stay to fight. So you're either flying or you're staying to fight. So, you get all of those adrenaline pumping in, and then it tells you, should you stay to face this issue or should you just run away? So it's anxiety, it's natural. But however, there's a bit in which we need to learn how to manage our anxiety. It is really, really important, especially around our children. Very, very important. Please, I will say that again. For those who are caregivers to disabled children, please be very much aware of their mental health issues because they do feel it, they do see it. Even when you don't say it, they watch your expression and they actually are quicker to picking up the innuendos, the semantics. When your child asks you, Mommy, are you okay? You say, Yes, I'm okay. Oh, yes, I'm okay. They know your voice. And the thing is, the way God has created children, they are more perceptive than us adults because their spirit is still a lot pure, very, very pure. They're very much more perceptive than we are. So they pick up things. So number one thing that I will say while we're going through all of these things we're all going through, watch out for your anxiety level. Manage it. There are things that I'm going to talk about later about how we manage anxiety because that is a topic on its own that we cannot talk about now. What I'm here to talk about today in this very short time, I know that it's an hour, about 30 minutes I'll be speaking, and the next 30 minutes I'm going to be responding to the questions. So please feel free to post your questions on, and I will be responding to them as you write them. So if you have any questions around post-COVID, what do you think what do you think we should be doing now to making sure that we're aware of the dangers ahead? Because the truth is we're not going to bury our heads in the sand like a lot of people do. Some of us would like to bury our heads in the sand and we just think that, we'll handle it or we'll handle it. No, there's a need for us to prepare. And one of the preparations is about what do we do now? What are the things that may come up as attendant issues after COVID? And that's the truth. When the lockdown, when the lid is lifted. And the picture that comes to my mind each time when I think of, okay, what's going to happen? What's going to happen after the lid is lifted? How are we going to cope? The picture that comes to my mind is what happens to a dog that has been chained down. For those of you who keep pets, especially pets that you keep in the house for a while, I know these are pets that enjoy the outdoor. What happens when you open the door? The first thing that pet is going to do is to run out. Will run out and run and run around and run around and run around. So what I'm saying is that after this lockdown, it is very, very understandable that some people may just go totally berserk. And when I say berserk, not as in mad, the way we define madness, we may be seeing or noticing a change in behavior in a lot of people. Men are going to change, women are going to change. I don't know whatever way in which you want to classify it, but all our behaviors are going to change. Some people will become extremely disinhibited. And when I say disinhibited, what I mean is that some people will start to spend a lot probably because they've seen a lot of loved ones die. They've seen people who have died suddenly without any plan. For some people have not written their will. For those of you who have properties, no will, nothing, all of us we trust and we believe that, God will take care of us. But the truth and the reality is that part of the ways in which you manage your anxiety is when you plan. And that is why we're having this talk today. And once again, I want to say thank you to the administrators of concerned parents and educators for allowing this topic to be spoken about, because it is the truth. The pandemic we're having physically now, there's a pandemic going on mentally in the mind of a lot of people that we cannot see. We need to prepare for when the lockdown is taken out. And I've already mentioned one of the things we need to do, manage our anxiety. The second bit is about planning. What are the things you need to plan for? You need to plan for, especially for teachers and school administrators, how you are going to debrief. I'm going to use that psychological word called debriefing when you get back to school. When you get back to school in September, God helping us that this whole thing clears up by September, I would suggest that administrators should put as part of their curriculum debriefing sessions with children. And that is apart from the debriefing you should continuously have with your children. And what do I mean by debriefing? Debriefing is when you sit down and you allow children to be able to talk to you. You allow them to talk to you. Ask them about what their fears are. Ask them about what are they experiencing. Some of them are not sleeping well at the moment. But those who are in Lagos, I know that there's been lots of issues around security in the past few weeks, where a lot of homes, the sleeping pattern has changed, not just in Nigeria, even here. Most homes, the sleeping patterns have changed. People are sleeping longer. So they're waking up at about 2 p.m., 3 p.m., and they are staying awake until about 2 a.m. in the morning. The fact is, sleep and a regular cycle is an important part of our mental well-being. When you do things haphazard, it will affect you. Nature, we form habits when we do things repeatedly. And one thing I'll say to you parents that you have your children at home now, do not let them be out of sync. Make sure that you have a routine in the house. It's okay for them to wake up a little bit late, but don't let them get to the extent where they're waking up at 2 p.m., 3 p.m., and they're not sleeping till 2 a.m., 3 a.m., thinking, oh, well, they're on holiday, let's let them know. You are digging a pattern for them that by the time they need to go back to school, it will be very, very difficult for them to cope. It will be very, very difficult for them to go back to what it was before. And one of the things that helps our mind is your ability to be able to stay what's the word? Your ability to be able to stay focused, your ability for you to be able to stay in the routine. And that is really, really important. So please, like I said, manage your anxiety. And for post-COVID, we're going to talk about what we do around post-COVID. But now we're talking about current. Develop a routine in the house. Develop a routine in the house. I already talked about debriefing, making sure that we debrief with our children. Don't wait until later. Start to talk to them now. Allow them to express their fears to you. Allow them to talk to you. Allow them to paint. One of the things I always encourage, in fact, is actually a fantastic therapy. One of the therapies that we need to do is allow them to write. If you have painting things at home, allow them to express. Ask them to write down, especially the younger ones. Even if they're up to 12, 13, 14, ask them to write down how they're feeling. There's nothing wrong with it. Tell them to keep a journal. These are little things that helps to train the mind not to sink into the abyss of the anxiety that we have out there. Tell them to write. For those of them that are computer savvy, enroll them in a lot of online courses. We have so many online courses at the moment. Enroll them into a lot of online courses. They're good. Have a calendar. And when I say calendar, have a timetable for the day. Lunch, breakfast, lunch, dinner, playtime, study time. Especially now before it is holiday, because in the school calendar, it is not yet the holiday session. It is not yet the holiday session. So you just help them to manage that. They need to be in a routine, and not just the children. I would address adults as well. I'm aware that a lot of adults are, especially those who are not working actively at the moment. A lot of us adults, we are waking up and thinking, well, I'm on holiday. No, you're not on holiday. Do not allow your mind to sink, because the mind is like a wild field. If you do not cultivate it, it will grow wild. Sometimes when I look at my garden during summer, where suddenly the plants start to grow, they just start to grow. And before you know it, within 2 weeks, if I don't keep pulling the weeds out, before I know it, the garden is full of weeds. So likewise is our mind. There's a need for us to work intentionally on our mind. Pull out the weeds. Don't sit down and all you are doing every day is to watch Nollywood movies, or just doing things that you think, well, it's because there's something to do. Or you stay on Facebook and all you're doing is checking up one person's profile, or you're on Instagram checking after the other, listening to all the news. No, don't do that. It's okay to be on Facebook. I'm on Facebook. I'm quite active on Facebook. But however, there's a need for us to monitor and watch what we're doing. It is really, really important. Like I said earlier, our children watch us. Our children take up after us. They pick up on our anxiety. They pick up on our joys, our highs, and they pick up on our low. This is really, really important. Please post your question on. I'm going to look at the questions. I'm going to look at the comment section later, and I would respond some of the questions. So if you have any, pick them and post them there, and I'll be responding to it. So let's talk about post-COVID now. So I've just mentioned a few things. I know because I have very limited time, I'm speaking on just some key things for us to notice now during the current COVID session, things to do. I've already mentioned about the need for us to debrief our children, set a routine in place for them, watch your anxiety level around them. Those three things are quite key. Post-COVID, what should we do? I mentioned one earlier. Make sure we're on the lookout for our young ones. Look out for their behavior. A lot of people are experiencing trauma at the moment. So for those who they've lost loved ones, they've lost their parents, friends. Nigeria so far, we are blessed, if I can use that word, blessed, that there's been very little death. But for those who are here, those who are in other countries where the rate of death has been extremely high, I'll be saying to, because I know that there's some people watching from UK here as well. I'll be saying to us that we just need to be aware and be careful around our children. There's a need for us to be aware and be careful around our children, and also adults. So when I talk about children, I'm not limiting to just 0 age to 18. I'm talking about even the young adults in our houses, the ones who are in university, who are back home. A lot of those who are in university, they're all back home now, so you have a full house at the moment. Make sure you put in fun activities that would incorporate everybody in the house. Post-COVID, what are we going to be looking for? Substance misuse is one major one. I know I'm supposed to be talking as well about substance misuse is a major one. And that is an issue that at the moment in Nigeria, I know it is big, very, very big. In fact, the world over, not just in Nigeria. But I'm quite particular about Nigeria because I know about 10 years ago, yes, you boys will be boys, girls will be boys. People played a little bit around with cannabis, they played a little bit around. But now, in the last 10 years, where technology has gone up very, very high, technology has gone to the highest level. Where what I'm speaking with you now, I'm in UK, and I know that about 70% of those who are watching, you're in Nigeria. That is the level at which technology has gotten to. There's Amazon. You can shop and buy something from Amazon, and it will be delivered in your house in Nigeria. There's Alibaba. People buy things on Alibaba. There's just so many websites where people buy a lot of things from now. And as much as we've seen a lot of progress and fantastic issues have come up and fantastic things have come out of the development of technology in the last few years, there's some downsides to it, I must say. And part of this downside is the fact that a lot of our children are ordering things online that we're not aware of. And one of it is drugs. And when I talk about drugs, there are different types of drugs. So some of you would know that there's narcotics. And with narcotics, within the drugs that in the narcotic groups are the opioids, that to be the heroin, the cocaine, and some other type of substances that people misuse. Then there is the tablets that people take. These tablets are the diazepams, the tramadol. These are meant to be tranquilizers, and tranquilizers are actually medical. They're actually legal drugs, but people are abusing these drugs. Children and adults are abusing these drugs. And can I just say it's something we need to be on the lookout for? Because people are going to divert to lots of negative coping mechanisms with the pressures they've been under. The fact that a man sits down and is thinking, my rent is going to be due. How am I going to pay my rent? How will I feed my children? Because they've lost their job, either a man or a woman. And the pressure is there. And it is so easy to reach out for the alcohol to use to numb the pain. People usually think that when they reach out for those things, it numbs the pain. It doesn't. Because the truth is, alcohol, drugs, they are not antidepressants. They are actually depressants. And I'll tell you how this works. I know that there's a whole session on substance misuse and addiction and how that works in our brain. The fact that we have this thing in our brain, this chemical in our brain that gives us the feel good factor. How does this work? It's a whole lesson on its own, totally. But I'd just like us to know that one of the things for us to look at for is the fact that a lot of people will misbehave. And when I talk about misbehave, is the fact that people will become disinhibited around food, disinhibited around buying things. People will go haywire and just want to spend all their money and buy because they think the world is coming to an end. It is a natural reaction. Disinhibited around drugs, disinhibited around how they express themselves because of the pressure they've been under. So the picture I'd like to give you is a picture of a Coke. When you have a bottle of Coke that you shake and shake and shake, you know what will happen when you release the bottle top? There's going to be, the fizz, everything will pop out. That is what's going to happen. But I'd like us to manage this fizz when it pops out. How do we manage it? How do we manage our young people? A topic for another day. I know there's been lots of questions that have been written. I'm just going to spend the next 10, 15 minutes looking at those questions, and I would respond to them. But I'm here again. I'm just going to recap again, just to talk to us about the need for us to be mentally aware, to be aware of mental health issues that may develop because of the current pandemic that the whole world is going through. Not just in Nigeria, it's everywhere because the pressure is so high. In actual fact, I think it's higher in countries where the death rate has been really, really high. It's the fact that I know that in the Nigerian community here in England, people that I know that have died, they're over 20. And those are the ones that I have heard. There are other people that I haven't heard. They're young ones, they're older ones. And it is so painful that, of course, all of us pray that would live forever, would live for a long time. But sometimes the form and manner of death can actually affect us. And one of the things we need to plan for is bereavement counseling. That is a topic on its own. For those who have experienced losses, I'm talking about losses of human life, there's a need to seek for bereavement counseling. There are a lot of psychologists who are out there. I'm more than happy later if you want to be referred to psychologists, more than happy, because I know the psychologists in Nigeria, the psychologists here. So my organization works a lot with a lot of clinicians in the background, and we do some bit of referrals. And sometimes these professionals will work pro bono, sometimes they will work pro bono. And I know that CP as well has done some fantastic job last week. I know they pasted something on the platform asking for those who just need somebody to talk to. Yes, that is another therapy, talking. But can I sound this alarm? Can I sound this caveat around talking? It is really, really important for us to be careful who we're talking to. Be careful who you're opening up to. Because sometimes if you open up to the wrong person, you actually create more trauma. You actually create more trouble for yourself if you're speaking to the wrong person. That can happen. So be careful that where you're opening up is a place where you know you're not going to be judged. Nobody is going to call you mad after. Nobody will say, oh, she's lost it. Oh, get over it. And some of the things we need to be careful. I need to mention these. These are some of the things we need to be careful when our children are talking to us. Don't shut them down. Allow them to express themselves. Don't tell them to get over it. What do you mean? There's something like madness. Stop it. No. Mental health awareness is a topic on its own. I know that I'm picking there and there and there because there's so much to cover. And I'm just trying to make sure that I pick all the key topics. We all have mental health. That's a key thing I'd like to pass across to us. All of us have mental health, but our mental health is on a spectrum. So when I talk about a spectrum, I mean there's a line. So it starts from the medium, from the low to the medium to the high. And when we go through a phase in life where something changes, our mental health can be affected. And you can have a topsy-turvy where it changes from low to medium. If there is no intervention when that mental health is being affected, if they do not either get a psychological or a psychiatric intervention, sometimes the mental health may progress and it goes to the high. And when it gets high, sometimes it's a little bit da, 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 da. I don't want to go into all of those details, but it's just to say to all of us, we all have mental health. And we have a responsibility to making sure that we maintain our mental health. Sometimes factors that are extraneous, factors outside, would affect us in such a way that we cannot control them. So the genes that we carry sometimes. So sometimes it is genetic. Yeah, mental health issues, mental illness sometimes is genetic. And sometimes for me, it's that big argument, is it nature or nurture? I'm not going to go into all of those details now because I'm aware lots of questions have been written. And I'm just going to scroll up and read through. Thank you so much for those who have joined. Yep. Kebi Koliowo, thank you very much. We should not allow our minds to sink. Absolutely right. And Tony said that the main problem some parents is that they're not ready to listen to their children, which is true. And that was why I sounded that warning. If you know you want to be able to help your child to survive this period, start talking to them now. Don't shut them down. Don't let them shut up. Who are you? I'm talking, you're talking. Nope. Allow your children to talk. Create a safe environment for them to be able to talk to you. Start the conversation. Speak to them in a language they would understand. Let them express their anxiety. They might not use the word anxiety. Some of them might start bedwetting. Maybe you had a child before that did not used to bedwet and suddenly they start to bedwet. That's when you know that anxiety has slipped in. So it is really, really important for us to make sure that we're listening to our children. Very, very important that we're listening to our children. Yeah, we need to work intentionally on our mind, remove irrelevancies from our mind, which is true. So there is this thing I taught, funny enough, I was actually speaking with one of my mentees yesterday. She was telling me that her mind is so active. She found it very, very difficult, to stop worrying. So it's almost like a subconscious thing. She just starts to worry. And I was saying, I gave her a good example of how our minds are. and what we can do to tame the mind. Yes, we can tame our mind. Some of us are professional warriors. And when you become a professional warrior, sometimes it is an anxiety disorder, which is a form of mental illness, where you envisage and you think of the worst scenario. So rain has not started falling. It's just that it became a little bit dark. And suddenly I think, oh, there's going to be downpour, there's going to be flood. Oh, there's going to be lightning. The lightning is going to kill people. And usually what happens when a person has an anxiety disorder is that they think of the worst case scenario. For them, they already envisage the worst case scenario. So, very right point that Kemi put up there, or Temi put up there, that we need to be careful and make sure we take the relevant things out of our mind. You know what? What you cannot deal with today, drop it, leave it. It is an exercise that you would need to do. It's not something that you can just, no, you will need to train your mind. And there are two ways. I'll give you just 2 points about how you can train your mind: meditation and affirmation, positive affirmation. Those two things are ways in which we can train our mind. Talking about meditation is a different ball game and a different topic on its own. But I'm saying to you, you can't train your mind, especially for some of us who are professional warriors. Would worry about everything. Would worry, oh, it's COVID-19 next door. Oh, that person sneezed. Maybe it is COVID-19. You worry about everything. You can train your mind. Take out all the negativities. Don't allow them to sink in at all. Post-COVID drug use and abuse will be high. That's true. Parents should we should try and please be the lesson teacher for now at home to refresh their memory. Yes, thank you for saying that, Pastor Fagbemi. Baki, that's very true. Because like I said, an idle mind is a fallow mind. So if we're thinking about post-COVID, think about current COVID period. Make sure you occupy the minds of your children gainfully. Don't give them iPad. Don't give them television. Oh, let them watch TV. So they watch TV from 8 a.m. in the morning to like 1. You are creating a big problem for yourself post-COVID, because the mind you allow to run wild and idle, the mind you allow to run idle will become a wild mind. We need to nip it in the bud now and work on it now, not later. Using drugs to dump depression, yep. So people sometimes use different, what I call, coping mechanisms. So when a person is feeling low, sometimes people would reach out for alcohol, like when things were normal. I remember, for us here, we say, oh, Friday evening, oh, it's Friday, yay, let's go party. You want to sit down with a cup of wine, a glass of wine, you want to sit down with your Guinness, you want to sit down with this, you want to sit down with that. Those things are not antidepressants. They actually are depressants, and they lead you into addiction. And that is the root cause of addiction. It's okay to drink one if you want to. I mean, I'm not here to preach whether you take alcohol or not to take alcohol, but I'm here to sound a warning that when you are depending on something to make you feel good, it is one fantastic root cause of addiction. So whether it is cigarettes, which is nicotine that reach out for to help to calm your nerves. So when your nerves are heightened, you're reaching out for cigarettes to calm your nerves. It is a root cause of addiction, and we need to watch it. How do we manage our young people? That is a big question. How do we manage our young people? Well, I've already mentioned one, especially now that they're all at home, give them a routine. 2, let them speak to you. 3, watch out for little signs. I'm going to talk a little bit about what the signs are for you to watch out for if somebody is depressed. You're not diagnosing, you're just picking, trying to know what are the signs that I should look out for if my child is showing signs of depression. And believe you me, I know that about 10 years ago, they used to say they would not give a mental health diagnosis for anybody, any person who is under 18, really. In fact, there was a time if you're under 21, they would not give you a mental health diagnosis because, the belief is that the brain is still forming. The brain is not fully formed yet. So why should you tell a 9-year-old child that they're depressed? But now, things have really changed. We're having diagnoses, mental illnesses being diagnosed now for children as young as 9. I'm sure some of you would have read about children that have died by suicide, and I use the word died by suicide, not committed suicide, who have died by suicide because they were depressed. Suicide is another thing that we need to watch out for, especially if you have relatives or families who are healthcare professionals, those who are in the financial sector, not just those who are bankers, financial sector, because it is very foreseeable. Yes, most of the bankers have their job now, but the truth is the ripple effect of what has happened with the FTSE. I want to say FTSE, this is the New York trading, where they buy all the big monies and all of that. What has happened in the Western countries is going to filter down to all the African countries. The economy is going to take a big hit. So don't let us deny and think, oh, it will be well in Jesus' name. No, it will be well. But however, you need to be conscious of how you spend at the moment. Don't spend all your money at the moment, because the truth is things are going to be hard. I'm not being a doomsayer, but it is just the truth. Because a lot of companies have closed down. People have lost their jobs. Before they get back again, it will take a while. And so please do not go on any spending spree at the moment. As much as possible, don't buy anything. Don't do any investment at the moment. Don't. Keep that money because you may need it. That's just one advice that I will give generally now, not just specifically around mental health issue. Yet seek debriefing counseling. Well, we can all debrief. It is not exactly a specialist skill. We can all debrief. And what's a debriefing session? A debriefing session is first of all sitting down with people and asking them what's happened, ask them how they felt about it, and ask them what they would do differently. Those are the three headlines around debriefing. You ask people to explain to you what happened. Tell me what happened. So they'll tell you, oh, when I went out yesterday night, I couldn't sleep because robbers have been on the street. My daddy is being part of the people watching our street, the noise every night, and children are bedwetting and all of that. So it's about you allowing them to talk. I now ask, how do they feel? I feel scared. I feel strong. Oh, it is okay. I'm okay. And then you now tell them what can they do differently to manage it better the next time. Those are the three key headlines around debriefing. So it's not exactly a specialist thing. Kemi is sounding exactly the same thing I've said. Be careful who you open up to. You need to be very, very careful, because sometimes when you think you're opening up to somebody because you want to speak, you're opening up to the wrong person who will use the information against you. There are quite a lot of people who are out there who'll be ready to listen to you. My name is Lade Olugbemi. You can follow me on Facebook. I also have a group that we on Facebook, the news organization. We raise awareness about mental health. We talk a lot on topical issues. So on bipolar, on eating disorder, on schizophrenia, on sleeping disorder. Quite a lot of things that we talk about on the page. So please feel free to join us on that page. Adekule says, listen to your children attentively. Don't keep them quiet. Thank you for that. That is true. Yes, counseling do be needed when we bounce back. Yes. So can I say to a lot of school administrators and proprietresses, please contact counselors. A lot of schools have counselors. A lot of people study counseling and guidance. This is when you should bring your skills to use. Please use them. Don't just please, it is important that we use them. It is necessary that when the children come back, we put in the curriculum at least once a week, a 1 hour, even at minimum once a week, of a debriefing session where you ask them, how did they feel? What happened? I've already given you the three headlines for debriefing. You don't need to be a specialist for you to do a debriefing. All of us can debrief. Reason along with the keys, which is true. Mental health has a spectrum. Yep, and the spectrum is from low, medium, high. Thank you for that. Give room to your kids to talk. We all have mental health issues, which is the truth. We all have mental health issues. I know that there's still a high stigma in Nigeria, the world over really, but I think it's higher in Nigeria, because one of the things that helps to remove stigma around issues is information. When we have a lot more information, is the fact that somebody like me is sitting and talking to you about mental health issues. I also talk about mental illnesses as well. In those days, the picture we had about people who talk about mental health issues were people who were very, very disoriented. Or these are people who I want to hear or they've had issues before, they are this, they are that. Now we all understand that every single one of us, at one time or the other in our lives, we will experience mental health issue. So whether it's a job loss, relationship breakdown, and when I talk about relationship breakdown, it's not just a breakdown of relationship between husband and wife or boyfriend and girlfriend. It's also between friends. It's also between siblings. It's also when there's inter-sibling rivalry and all of that. It's also at work. It's bullying at work. That can affect your mental health big time, especially bullying at work. That's one area that a lot of us, when we're talking about bullying or relationship, we don't think very well that relationship at workplace can affect. It might not even be bullying. So you may, I need to just kind of balance this. So sometimes the picture we have when we talk about bullying is the manager bullying the staff, or we think it's sometimes top down. No, bullying can be bottom up. I have seen and I've observed and I've talked to people who were bullied by their subordinates. That happens. So let's just try and have a 360 degrees around what bullying is. And these things can actually affect our mental health. We have a responsibility to control. Should I use the word control? We have the responsibility to manage our mental health. And what are the things that you can do to manage your mental health? I'm going to say that the last 5 minutes, some of the things. So the last 5 minutes, I'll talk about signs and the things that we can do to manage our mental being. Thank you so much for those who have stayed on, who are still watching. For me, is the fact that we are seeking knowledge. We want to know or we want to share. For those of you who are sharing your information there, thank you so much. Please share if you have. I have this attitude in life that nobody has 100% right to information. I'm not perfect. I don't have perfect knowledge, and nobody has perfect knowledge. The only person who has perfect knowledge is God. So please share anything else that you want to put on there, and I'm going to read them out, the ones that I can scroll through, that I can read. Sorry, I'm speaking a little bit fast because there's just so much information to pass across in the very little time. There are not too many questions here, so I'm just reading comments, and I don't really want to read too much comments. There are not too many questions here. Our mental health depends on how well we can manage it. Absolutely. You're loving this topic. Thank you. It's very important for us to listen to our children. We've said that. Take irrelevance out of your mind. Absolutely. Oh, yep. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. The fact that you spoke to a wrong person. With the incident that happened in your life. Yes, please be careful. It's one key thing. Meditation and mental affirmation. Those two things you can do to train your mind. Maybe we'll have another session. If I was going to talk about meditation, it'd take me about an hour to talk about meditation. How do you meditate? The art and the skill of meditation is something we need to learn. Our minds, like I said, they are like wild animals. Yes, that's how our mind is. And the picture again that I would want to give to us is like when you have a wild horse. You see the horses that we see that look so, so regal and very, very elegant and all of that. Those horses were once very, very wild, but they were tamed. Somebody picked them up, put a noose around their mouth, put a chain around their head, and started to teach them. The same way we have garden. If you leave your garden and you don't prune your roses, you don't do anything around it, it becomes a forest, it becomes very wild. Likewise with our mind. We can come back another time. I will talk about meditation. How do we train our mind? How do I stop myself from constantly worrying? Which is the thing that especially us women, it's like, it's like we were made to worry. It's part of our genes, to be honest, because we care. And sometimes when you care, you take things and talk about things so far away. So meditation and affirmation, those are two key things for us to look at. Stop worrying necessarily. You look us absolutely engage your children's mind, absolutely. Okay, alcohol. Is bipolar disorder the same as anxiety? No, they are not. They're not the same. Anxiety disorder, anxiety can become a disorder if the level of anxiety the person is experiencing is affecting the everyday life. When it starts to affect the relationship, affect their health, affect how they view the world, So to be honest, it will have to be a psychiatrist. I will have to ask some key questions before they can now diagnose an anxiety disorder. But one key thing that I will say is that when it affects a person's worldview, affects their health, and it's affecting relationship. I want to talk about relationship now. It's relationship with both people at home, people at work, people in the community. When the anxiety becomes very overwhelming, when it's not just the pounding of heart, or the fact that your hand is sweating, or the fact that your tummy is rumbling. It's a lot more than that. And you're experiencing it almost 24 hours of the day, and it is not stopping. It may be that that person has an anxiety disorder. Bipolar disorder is different as well. They're not the same. I've already mentioned. Sometimes it is the easiest way to define bipolar disorder is when people experience um, a change in their mood. Sometimes it is sudden, sometimes it is not sudden, sometimes it's progressed. So you can see somebody who feels very, very high, and maybe suddenly in the afternoon, it could even be immediately, and they're suddenly feeling very low. So that's the difference. Cigarettes, nicotine calms nerves. Yes, it does calm nerves. It gives you a pseudo effect of your feelings. It is not real because it is just for a while, it wears off. The best thing is to know how to self-help therapies that you can do to actually help to calm you down. There's one I'll be talking about too. So one of the ways in which you can manage anxiety, I talked about meditation, affirmation, and another one is breathing exercise. A lot of us do not breathe properly. We, especially a lot of us from Africa, we don't breathe properly, and that's the truth. Our breathing is quite shallow. We don't breathe down. It's very, very shallow. I'll talk about that later. Speak to you is the key. Okay. Give children a routine. Fantastic. Depression doesn't have age limit. Absolutely. Thank you for mentioning that. Is the fact that children are being diagnosed with depression now. Children as young as 8, 9, they've been diagnosed with depression. So we need to watch out. And let me just quickly mention some of the signs of depression that we need to look out for. And one of the key things that I say is that it is so difficult for you to write a script of what signs to look out for, because you know what? The way it would present in one person might be different from the way it would present in the other person. So, for example, some of the signs: when a person is sleeping too much. A sign of depression may be when a person is not sleeping enough, when a person is eating too much, or maybe they're eating less, when a person becomes overly playful, or it may just be that they just totally isolate and withdraw to themselves. Sometimes people start to self-neglect. So people who you know that, oh my word, their dressing is always on point when they're out, and suddenly they don't care. The hair goes totally haywire, lipstick over there, and all of that. That may be a sign. But can I just sound this caveat as well? That sometimes when people overdress, it may be a sign. Sometimes, especially alpha females, I need to mention this, I'm going into all of the details today. Especially alpha females, one of the ways, and I use the word high functioning depression, high functioning anxiety. People are still functioning, so the depression is not written all over their faces. They're still going to work, they still do not their regular things, but they are depressed. And there are other ways in which you can know. So it's not just about the self neglect. So I need to mention that because oftentimes when we are looking out for signs of depression, we're looking out for, oh, it's because they're not taking care of themselves, or their room is not tidy, or the person is smelling, or sometimes this person's speech becomes quite fast. Sometimes it becomes quite slurred. One of the things that I will say as a whole for you to know the signs is look out for the things that person did not used to do before. So if the person did not used to eat a lot before and suddenly they start to overeat, it may be a sign. And when you talk about a sign, it doesn't mean that that is it. That is exactly what is happening. It's just saying observe. Observe so that you can signpost or you can open them up to talk to you. In children, some of the signs are they start to bite their nails more than they used to bite their nails. They might start to pull their hair. They might start to self-harm. They may start to bedwet. They may start to lie. So you have a child that is normally very plain, will say it as it is. They start to lie. And you discover they're lying. They may start to steal. It may be a sign of depression. They may start to steal. And these are things and opportunities for us to catch when we observe them, to talk with the children to help them open up to us. And sometimes how the children open up to us, we need to watch how, it's not possible for a child that you've been shouting at all the time, a child that you have told is useless, a child that you have told, oh, you cannot amount to anything, or Lodo, you are this, you did not get it, a child that you've been very negative to from morning. And then at night, you're not telling that child, talk to me, I'm your mother, I'm your dad, I'm your auntie, you know I love you. No, there has to be a consistency in the behavior of that adult. That's one thing I'd just like to shout. We have to be very, very consistent, very, very consistent with whatever support that we're giving to the children. We need to be very, very consistent around what we say to them. Okay? I'm aware that we have 4 more minutes to go. I'm just going to quickly scroll through and see if we have any other question here. Bullying can be Bob. Thank you for noting that. Great session. Thank you very much, Betty. Thank you, Bola, for watching. Thank you for Lashade. So I've talked about the signs, and I said I'm going to give you some of the things that we can do to manage anxiety. Breathing. Let me give you this. This is one of the easiest things it's one of the easiest. There's so many self-help therapies that we can actually do to manage our anxieties and worrying. So I usually would say you do 6 cycles of this. A lot of us, we don't breathe well, like I said. So I've got 4 more minutes to go. We do not breathe well, like I said. So breathe in very quickly and we exhale very quickly. That's how most of us breathe. We need to be conscious. So it's a breathing technique that you would link with meditation. You need to be conscious how you breathe. So for those of you who are online, if you want to join me, let's do this together. Shall we? Shall we do this together? Okay, I just want to scroll through and see if there's any other questions I need to answer before we round up. Oh, for people over 60, how should they manage depression considering their age? Whoa. One of the things I say is about menopause, especially for female, and the very blurred lines or the gray area around those who are over 60 is that recently the age at which people are being diagnosed with dementia is getting quite lower now. So before it's people who are over 70s that you would think you may want to start checking for signs of dementia. It's getting lower. And some of the signs for dementia sometimes masks, they mask to be like signs of depression as well. So they become moody. What can you do? Well, one of the things I say is allow them to express themselves. Music is good. Music that they can relate to is very, very good. Talking to them is good. Taking them out is good. There's so many things that we can do. I've just mentioned about 4 that we can do. Music, talking to them, taking them out, or bringing past things, good memories, do not the negative ones. What do you do? What do we do with university students? That is a topic on this so that I don't think I can cover, to be honest. I've got 2 minutes to go. Let's do the breathing exercise. Let's do that very quickly because we've got 2 minutes to go. Okay. So if you sit down, put your hand on your thighs. Unfortunately, I can't. I wish I had a camera that can take me fully. Put your hand on your laps, sorry, not your thighs, but your thighs on your laps. Put your hand on your thighs. And then let's just breathe in together. And I'm going to count. I'll do the counting first and then I'll do it together with because I need to count. So from time to time, I suggest that you do this about 2 or 3 times a day, especially when you're anxious. There's a counting as well that you can do, especially when you're anxious, counting 1 to 10. 1 to 10. But let's count 1 to 6 and we do a deep breath in 1 to 6. I'm not going to count it out. I said I was before. I won't count it out. Let's do a deep breath 1 to 6. And then you hold your breath for 4 seconds. You don't start with lots of seconds initially. You start gradually. Let's start with 4 seconds. So let me say how we do it. You breathe in, count 1 to 6. Hold your breath for 4 seconds. And then you exhale, counting 6. So it is 6, 4, 6. So you breathe in, counting 6 seconds. You hold your breath for 4 seconds and you exhale for 6 seconds. So we just quickly do it together now. We breathe in now. And then we exhale. When you are exhaling and counting up to the 6, make sure you exhale from your stomach, not from your throat. Let the breath come out from your stomach. Let the breath come out from your stomach. So I have spent an hour talking to you. Thank you for all of you who engaged with us. Follow us on the news platform, like we said. Send your questions to us. More than happy to respond to any questions that you may have. But please stay safe out there. As much as we're washing all our hands, please don't forget to wash your hands, do the social distancing. Let us also do the mental distancing. Distance your mind for things that are irrelevant, things that you know will not help you. Clean and debrief your mind. Debrief not just for yourself, debrief for the children. Make sure you do not allow your anxiety to affect your children or the children around you. Be intentional about things. Make the environment in the home conducive, man or woman. Oftentimes we think it's the responsibility of the woman. I will say no. It's for all the adults in the house. Let's make the house conducive. You don't have to live in a palace. Your war room can be a palace. You don't have to have everything. The little that you have today can become plenty, can become fantastic tomorrow. So don't be narrow minded. Control your anxiety. Do the breathing exercises, meditation, positive affirmation. When those thoughts come to your mind and they're very negative, throw them all out. Do not accept them. Thank you. Until we meet again, like the Queen said when she gave her address, I pray that God will look out for all of us, that God will bless us. The last bit I did not mention is that our faith is really important. If a person of faith, read your Bible, read your Quran, whatever it is that you have, hold on to God and pray. Prayer is another fantastic way in which we can manage anxiety. Prayer is fantastic. God bless us all. And thank you for listening to me. Thank you, CPE, for the platform. Thank you so much. Okie dokie, till we'll meet again. God bless us all. Bye.